It happens to everyone. If it hasn't happened to you yet or recently, it will. No one is exempt. In the book, I talk about a time when I was playing electric guitar for a local church worship team and I totally messed up. We were playing a song that I had played a dozen times and I landed on the wrong note of the signature electric guitar part. It was noticeable to anyone with ears. That note wasn't even pretending to be in the key. It was bad. I messed up. What do I do now? Obviously, the most important thing to do is to keep playing. Do your best. Try to shake it off. Keep your head up, keep calm, and finish strong. It can be hard to recover from such an obvious mistake, and I will admit that I played much more conservatively after that heinous note soared through the auditorium. I second-guessed myself from that point on, and I made a few additional but less noticeable mistakes as I attempted to finish strong. Listen, I hate messing up. We all do. But let's talk about this a little bit more and also talk about what to do after the inevitable takes place on today's Weekly Worship Thought. Making a musical mistake is certainly not the end of the world. When you mess up, try to keep these 4 things in mind and you'll be just fine. First off, take responsibility. Do not try to blame your mistake on someone else. Do not try to come up with excuses to save face. Not only is that approach dishonest and unloving, but you will not grow by using this method. In order to grow and to improve, accept that you messed up. I was once preparing to lead congregational worship on a Sunday morning when the bass player in the band literally dropped his guitar onto the ground. I have no idea how it happened, but it was noticeable and it was loud. But the worst part, and this is the part that I will never forget, is that as soon as the guitar hit the ground, he instinctively and loudly proclaimed, "It's not my fault." I'm not sure whose fault he thought it was, but with those words, he took an honest mistake and turned it into an issue. I was also once playing drums on a Sunday morning when the worship leader started the song differently from how we had rehearsed. He was supposed to look at me and nod his head, and then I would click off the song and we would all start together. But he never looked, and I never clicked, and he started the song all by himself. About the time the rest of the band figured out what was going on and tried to join in, he stopped the whole song. And instead of taking responsibility for an honest mistake, he proceeded to inform the congregation that it was the drummer's fault because the drummer was supposed to click us in. Not cool. Don't do that. If you mess up, take responsibility for your mistake. If you're the leader, you may have to take responsibility for someone else's mistake. That's a part of leadership. Second, keep your head up. Personally, I find it really easy to hang my head when I mess up. Part of that is probably shame, part of it is pride. I hold myself to a high standard and I really do not like failing to meet that standard. But the reality is that sometimes I don't meet my own standard, and that's okay. Mistakes do not have to define who we are. Sure, there will be those voices out there that are all too willing to remind you of your mess ups, and sometimes those voices are your own. But we have to choose to listen to the voice of God, who continually reminds us that our identity is not in what we can do, but in what God has already done. Jesus died for us, the Father adopted us, the Holy Spirit is leading us. No silly little mistake could ever change that. Third, get better. One of the fringe benefits of making a mistake is that it often helps to illuminate a weak spot. Maybe I didn't spend enough time practicing. Maybe I got distracted. Maybe there's a real tangible reason why I made the mistake that I made. Keep in mind that I'm not talking about making excuses, but about understanding what led to the mistake so that I don't repeat it in the future. Fourth, extend grace to others. The second powerful fringe benefit of making a mistake is that it should make us more quick to extend grace to others when they mess up. We all make mistakes. No one is exempt. This time it was me. Next time it may be someone else. Hopefully, I will be as quick to show grace to others as I want them to be in showing grace to me. Alright, it's time to get super practical. So we're going to talk about some do's and don'ts when it comes to this whole idea of messing up. How do you respond? How do you move on? And I've got Nate with me. Say hi, Nate. Perfect. And we're going to keep using this song. It's kind of a contemporary version of Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing with a pretty simple riff. But we're going to use it to illustrate some of these key do's and don'ts, so I hope you find this helpful. Tip number 1, when you mess up, notice I didn't say if, but when, do not try to point the blame at someone else. If you happen to mess up, like, don't get all gun shy. And I actually played with a guy once. When he messed up, he would just totally turn down his volume and pretend he was playing when nothing was coming out. Later, he would blame the sound man. But don't just turn your volume down and pretend that you're Stevie Vai. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Now, the one thing the guy who turned down his volume had going for him is that at least the carnage stopped. So another tip is don't just try to muscle through, all right? Stop, get your bearings, figure out where you're at in the song, and don't start playing again until you know where you're at and you know it's going to be a good note. So don't do this. Enough about what not to do. Let's give a couple of quick tips about what you should do. Number 1, come prepared. Practice these songs in advance so when you get there for rehearsal, when you're there for the service, people can count on you to nail the part. And the last tip is some of these songs have tricky spots in it, and that's okay. You know, sometimes we mess up with just kind of a brain dead moment or something, but sometimes there's trickier spots. So I want to give you 2 quick tips about how to come prepared, how to practice well, and make sure you can nail these. And the first tip is sometimes you need to slow things down a little bit. Sometimes the full speed of the song can trip you up. So we'll just take this exact same riff again. And let's say I was struggling to get it really well and clear, and let's slow it down quite a bit. So 1, 2, 3. Cool. So now once I've got it low and I've got all of the notes in place, instead of just hoping for the best, I can just start speeding that up and then keep practicing it slow. Hopefully you're practicing with a metronome, and then we can just keep speeding it up until we're to the actual speed we're going to play it as a band. So the other thing I want to talk about is looping, and it's just a real simple concept, but we're using this Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, and I tend to play this song a little bit differently than Nate does. I use the 6 minor in the verse, so there's just a little walk down 6 minor, 5, 4, 1, or B minor, A, G, D. And that kind of threw him for a loop at first, so what do? We're going to loop it. We're going to take that same part and we're just going to kind of play it over and over again to get it in our heads and make sure we're playing it correctly. So let's try this. 1, 2, 3. Prone to. Again. Prone to. Again. Prone to. And just keep looping it over and over again until you play it the way that you want to play it, and this can be super helpful. Look, we all mess up, we've all done it. It's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. And when it happens to you, remember our focus is on worshiping Jesus. Of course, we want to do it skillfully. We want to give him the glory and the honor that he deserves. But this is not about our pride or anything like that. So when you mess up, man, you just own it. You grow from it. And remember to try and get back in there and finish strong. Can you remember a time when you messed up in front of an audience while trying to lead worship? How did it make you feel to mess up in that capacity? How did you respond? How did the people around you respond? Can you remember a time when you were trying to lead worship in front of an audience and someone else in the band messed up? How did they respond? How did the other people in the band respond? How did the whole scenario make you feel personally? Why do you think it is so important for us to take responsibility for our own mistakes? In what ways do you think a momentary musical mess-up can actually make you better in the long run? Thinking back to times when you made musical mistakes during a congregational worship service, what do you think were the key factors that led to those mistakes? What has been instrumental in helping you to do better afterwards?